Welcome to Impact Makers Radio, featuring industry thought leaders sharing problem-solving insights to help grow your business and live the life you love. And here's your host, Stewart Andrew Alexander.
Hi, and welcome to another Let's Talk Divorce conversation. And on this segment of the show, I have tax and forensic accountant Bernadette Harris, owner of By the Book Accounting, and she's calling in all the way from Atlanta, Georgia. Now then, Bernadette, who is considered to be a leader in the area of tax and forensic accounting, will be talking to you today about a very interesting topic. Bernadette's here to discuss the importance of tax planning in divorce proceedings. So, if you are one of the increasing amount of divorcing couples in the Atlanta, Georgia area who can relate to today's topic, you might want to take a break. Log out of Facebook. Come on, turn off Twitter. Give yourself some time to listen in to what Bernadette has to share with us today. So with that said, then, ladies and gentlemen, let's not keep her waiting any longer. Welcome to the show, Bernadette.
Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. I know how busy you are over there in good old sunny old Georgia. So let's get cracking, as we say in the UK. Let's jump feet first in. First question of the day. Briefly then, Bernadette, describe the kinds of people who you serve and the various types of situations they find themselves in when they reach out to you for your help.
So like you said, the number of divorced couples is unfortunately growing. And we have a lot of times with my clients, they don't realize that tax planning is also a part of the divorce proceedings, that there is a major effect that divorce has on your tax situation. And if you don't have a conversation with your tax accountant before, going through with everything that you have going on, the impact can be one that you're not looking forward to.
Okay, so it goes without saying then, Bernadette, that anything from this point on that you share with us today is not legal advice or legal assistance. It's purely for the purpose of sharing information. Now, with that said, when you think about all of the preconceived notions, the common misconceptions that are out there when people come to you for your help, and maybe, they've done some research on the internet, or they've asked friends or colleagues, and they come to you with some belief that what they have in their hands is true. However, on the contrary, that it's not true, and you have to spend some time dispelling those myths and unpeeling those misconceptions. And what's the most common one that comes across your table on a regular basis then, Bernadette?
Usually it is about the filing status. So there are divorcing couples who have this misconception of I can file single, or I can file head of household, or filing separately is better, or whatever the case may be. And so just knowing that the way that you file, the filing status that you actually choose, determines a big deal. It impacts your bottom line. It impacts how much you end up owing, or in some cases, how much you get back. And so not filing the right filing status could, one, be against the law, or two, it could be to your detriment, because then you're not able to maximize the tax deductions.
Okay, so based on what you just shared with us then, Bernadette, and keeping your client's confidentiality in mind, obviously, can you please share an example of how you've managed to help someone who came to you with those misconceptions, with those challenges you just described, and what kind of transformational results you were able to gain for them?
So we'll make up a name, and this person's name will be Sherry. We'll say it, Sherry. So Sherry is getting a divorce, and Sherry wants to file married filing separately. She's very emotional at this point, and all of her decisions are based on emotion. And as a result of that, she is going to be in a situation where she won't be able to take certain tax credits. So, for instance, let's say Sherry has a college student who is her dependent, the child that she has with her soon-to-be ex-spouse. Now, by filing a married separate tax return, she can't take the education credits for her college student. And so what I would tell Sherry is, let's not be emotional, and let's not make a decision based on emotion, because this emotional decision is going to have a great impact on you financially. Mm-hmm. And so you have this relationship with this person. You've been married to them for X number of years. You have a college-age child. You work together for 19, 20 years. One more year is not going to kill you. Filing a joint return will allow you to be able to take the education tax credit for this student, your child, and also decrease your tax liability. And so one of the biggest challenges that I have, Stewart, is helping people to not make decisions emotionally, but to make logical decisions based on factual information.
So if they do make decisions based on emotions, what could be some of the repercussions of that? You mentioned already financial, but what other repercussions could there be?
So, financial is the biggest piece. That's the biggest piece because the tax credits that are available to college-age students, you're looking at a tax credit of like $4,000, and so that's huge. And not only that is when you file married separate, a lot of times you don't. So this is another example. I had this happen to a couple where they filed married separately. So when you file married separately here in the U.S., you have to, if one spouse itemizes, then the other spouse has to itemize. And so I had a situation where the house was in the name of the husband, and they decided to file separately, so they both had to itemize. Well, the wife didn't have any itemized deductions. And so she ended up paying more in taxes than the husband did because he had all the itemized deductions. So it's really, really important to kind of get past the emotions that are, and I understand that divorce is an emotional transaction, so to speak, but it's really important to get past that emotion and at least let's sit down and have a logical conversation and work it out this one last time,
Yeah, it all makes sense on paper, what you're saying. But I can just imagine how someone is just so distraught. They've been cheated on or whatever the case may be. They may have been abused. And now you're saying from a professional perspective, you have to work together with that person. And it's got to be such a difficult one. But like you said, it has to be done, right? It just really has to be done.
Right. And you really, it's like pick the pill, pick your poison. So if you want to be making decisions based on your emotions, then you have to be prepared for what happens as a result of. So in that situation with Sherry, if she decided to file separately anyway because she just can't stand her husband anymore, then she needs to be prepared to give up that $4,000 tax credit. She needs to be prepared to possibly pay a lot more in taxes. And I've never had any clients that have, once they've been presented with that information where they say, you know what, I just want to do it anyway. I've never had any clients like that. Yeah. I'm sure there probably are some people out there, Stewart, but I've never felt that way. I've never seen that happen.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that because it does make sense just to make those decisions based on logic and not emotion. I'm sure another one of the repercussions would they would end up paying you more for your time. If it's
right.
so, being emotional, you're going to have to sit there and maybe listen to an hour of them pouring their heart out about how they've been cheated, and you still haven't got down to the real business of the day. So yeah, thanks for sharing that with us, Bernadette. That's a great insight. So as a reminder, today we do have our expert today, who is a tax and forensic accounting expert. Her name is Bernadette Harris, and our topic for today is the importance of tax planning in divorce proceedings. Now, with that in mind, and for those divorcing couples out there who are listening in right now, Bernadette, and they're wanting to know more, in your experience, what's the most unknown but common pitfall that they should always consider, no matter what position they find themselves in, no matter how unfairly they feel they've been mistreated? What's the most common pitfall out there?
Is at least the importance of the tax planning. Because there are some situations I've been in business for 16 years, and in 16 years, I've probably had about 3 clients who have benefited from filing separately. And so I think that the one thing that you want to do is have the conversation. A lot of people will shy away from having a consultation with a tax accountant to see what are their options, because there are some options where you may be able to file separately if you live separately. So sometimes divorce proceedings go on for a long period of time, and it doesn't happen in 6 months. It may take 18 months or something like that. And so if it's a situation where a couple is living separately, and say, for instance, in the case of Sherry, where if she were living separately from her husband and caring for her son, she could file a separate return and not be penalized, so to speak, by filing separately. So I think that the point I'm making is the importance of getting the professional advice. So don't listen to your cousin unless your cousin is a tax accountant. Don't listen to your friends who also got a divorce, because everybody's situation is the same. And it's like, take the time to have a consultation with a professional to understand how this affects your situation. Because taxes, just like the law and any other thing, it's specific to you. It's specific to your situation.
On that topic of taking the time to speak with a professional then, Bernadette, if there is someone out there who's looking to take on the services of someone like yourself, a tax and forensic accountant, in your opinion, what are 2 questions that they should ask that professional to help them determine whether to move forward or not?
So one, you want to find out what their experience is. Have they worked with couples like you before? What are some of the things that they need to take into consideration? I think that when you speak to a professional, if they are shy about giving you information, that may be a sign to show that they don't have any information to give. And so when I speak with a client initially, the first call with the client is free. And in that call, I'll answer any question that they have. And so a lot of professionals shy away from answering your questions because they want to charge you for the call. But if you meet a professional who's not forthcoming or willing to share some information, I'm not saying give you everything that you need to know, but some information, that should be a sign to you that this may not necessarily be the person that you want to work with.
This is a really great conversation that we're having today, Bernadette. I really appreciate you taking the time for coming on to the show today. So let me ask you this then, very briefly. How many years have you been a tax and forensic accountant, or how long have you been working in this field?
I've been in the field for 16 years.
Right.
I started my business in 2001. Mm-hmm. And I've been enjoying it. I love what I do. I love helping the people that I help.
Well, let's go into that. About how much you enjoy it. So let's just imagine it's any day of the week. It's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It doesn't matter which day of the week. And it's 7 a.m. in the morning. Your alarm clock goes off. You wake up and you have a full day ahead of you helping those unfortunate people who find themselves in the position of divorce and looking at their options for tax. With that picture in mind, how does Bernadette Harris feel on a day like that? I mean, after so many years, are you still motivated?
I am, because, Stewart, no day is the same.
Right.
No client is the same. No case is the same. No matter how many divorcing couples I work with, every single situation is different. Some of my divorcing clients only need tax planning service. Some of them need forensic services where if you have, I've had a couple where they had a business together, and so they needed a forensic accountant to come in to assess the value of the business so that they can determine how they're going to, split as far as the what do you call it, when the judge makes the decision on who gets what. They needed a forensic accountant to come in to assess how much the business was actually worth. And so every single case is different. And so, yes, it is motivating. It is very, very motivating because nobody is the same. Like, I may be able to pull something from case A and use it in case B, but more than likely it's something totally different.
So let's just circle back a little bit. You started to share a little bit about yourself before I jumped in and asked you my last question. So let's just circle back. Can you just share a little bit about yourself then, Bernadette, and especially in terms of your background and your formal education, as well as your experience as it relates to the topic of tax and forensic accounting?
So I am what is called an overachiever, and so I have lots of education because I just love learning. So I have a bachelor's degree in accounting, which I received from Cheney University, which is it's the very first HBCU that was established here in the U.S. I have a master's of business administration from Keller Graduate School, and I also have a master's of science in fraud and forensics. I am a certified fraud examiner, which means basically I passed a really hard test.
I like it. Yeah.
And so those are all of my formal credentials as far as education goes, as far as experience. Over the last 16 years, I've been working with, of course, I work with divorcing couples, but I also work with individuals. I've worked with small business owners. I've worked with nonprofit organizations, religious organizations, and things like that, just depending on what it is that they needed from me. So Fantastic. It's been my absolute joy. I love waking up now, but I have to correct you on one thing, Stewart.
Okay,
when you
sure.
said my alarm clock going off at 7:30, that never happened.
Okay. So come on then, spill the beans. What does happen?
No alarm clock. I do not have an alarm. The only time I have an alarm clock set is if I have a meeting that and I rarely ever schedule anything that early. I'm not a morning person, so I typically will get started about 9. But everything was fine except for when you said 7:30 alarm. I thought, oh my gosh, no way.
Well, I'm in the same club. I've not used an alarm clock for over 15 years to wake up, so I totally get where you're coming from. So thanks for correcting me, Bernadette. So listen, I've just got a feeling that we're just scratching the surface here of how you could help our listeners, but we are limited by time. So my final question for you today, before we move on to find out how we can get in touch with you, is if you could just picture those divorcing couples, those individuals, and even those businesses out there that you help who come to you for your help, and they're wanting to dig a little bit deeper into the topic of tax planning in divorce proceedings. Now, with that picture in mind, Bernadette, what would be your final thoughts that you'd like to leave them with before we close out today's show?
So my final thought is divorce is painful. I know. I've been divorced. I know what it's like to go through it. But I would encourage your couples, the couples who are listening to this episode, to try hard to get past the emotional piece. And again, I know how hard that is too, but try really hard to get past the emotional piece and deal with the logical piece for this one last time. Because once the divorce is over, you don't have to deal with that person anymore. You don't have to worry about filing a joint return. But while you're in it, while you're still going through it, I would just encourage you to kind of put the emotions to the side for this one last time. And that last tax return that you have to file together, at least use logic and make sure that you are you're just paying your fair share. You're not paying anything extra or missing out on deductions just because you can't stand that person anymore. So
Fantastic. So if there is somebody out there who feels they want to know more about the importance of tax planning in divorce proceedings, then Bernadette, what's the best way for them to get hold of you?
So you can go to my website. My website is bythebookaccounting.com. On my website, they can schedule a call with me. And again, that first call is free. And I work with clients all over the country. I even have clients who live abroad. So I have several clients who live in Dubai. So location is really not an issue. If you're a U.S. citizen and you need tax preparation here, I can help you. So bythebookaccounting.com, schedule your free call, and let's just talk about it. Let's talk about your situation and how I can help you.
Well, that's all we have time for today. Again, that was tax and forensic accountant Bernadette Harris. Thank you so much for sharing so generously with us today, Bernadette. You have certainly, without a doubt, hands down, 100% demonstrated that you are a true educator and advocate for your client success. So thank you.
Thank you for the invitation. I enjoyed it.
You are so welcome. You need to get yourself an alarm clock, by the way.
No way.
All right. Thanks again, Bernadette. And also a big thank you to the listener. Yes, to you, the listener. Thank you for joining us on this, what I can only describe as a very insightful and informative discussion with one of the top tax and forensic accountants in Atlanta, Georgia today. Possibly even the only one, because I've never heard of that before. Sounds very unique. Again, her name was Bernadette Harris. Make sure you do check her out. Give her a call. Send her that email. I am absolutely sure after today's call, you'll most certainly be in the right place. So that's it, folks. Again, my name is Stewart Andrew Alexander, and we'll be back shortly with some more leading tax and forensic accounting professionals. Maybe we can find another one. Who knows? I don't think so. I think this is the only one on the planet. Anyway, we're going to be back again with our series of Let's Talk Divorce Conversations. So until then, take care, have a great day, and we'll talk real soon.
Thank you for tuning in to Impact Makers Radio. To listen to all past, present and future industry thought leaders and trendsetters, visit us at impactmakersradio.com.